Okay, hi everybody. I am here on the steps of the Capitol building in Harrisburg for the Lyme rally for HB174 SB100 bill to get more legislation and treatment for Lyme disease patients. So we're going to hear some speeches today. I'm going to turn this around so you guys can see what's happening here. Here we go. As you can see, there are a lot of signs here from Lyme patients. Let's go down the steps here. Here's a sign that says, "We pay for insurance. Insurance should pay for Lyme," which is absolutely right. Delayed Lyme diagnosis equals long-term treatment. And that's the whole problem, isn't it? So many patients are actually misdiagnosed and it causes long-term Lyme disease or late-stage Lyme disease. And the problem with that is that insurance companies and doctors still believe that 30 days of antibiotic care is all that's needed to cure Lyme disease, and that's just absolutely false. And if you don't believe the studies that are coming out about that, you can look at the patients themselves, including myself. I actually reached remission after 2.5 years in treatment. Long-term treatment saved my life. Taking a look at some of the signs here. There's a sign that says Lyme patients, what does it say? Lyme patients going untreated when insurance won't pay. Lyme misunderstood, underdiagnosed, and untreated. Here's a great sign. Let me see if I can get closer. 68 children are diagnosed with Lyme every day, and that's just in Pennsylvania. Unfortunately, tests are only 50% accurate. That's a huge problem when trying to figure out whether or not someone has Lyme disease. The tests are usually inaccurate, and it often requires a clinical diagnosis. Someone says all 3 of their kids have Lyme disease. We're going to talk with my friend Nika a little bit later. Her whole family has Lyme disease, including her 3 children. Here's a sign from somebody. Let me see if I can get a little bit closer. Here's a sign that says, "Couldn't walk at 30 years old. Treatment not medically necessary," according to the insurance company. As somebody who had trouble walking, I can attest to that.
Hey there, lady. I was looking up your book.
I'm actually live right now. Do you want to say a few words? I'm on Facebook.
Oh.
You don't want to say a few words? Yeah, say hi.
I met this young lady at the Binghamton Southern Tier Lyme Disease
Yeah.
Conference, and she had sold out all of her books. So I've been looking up online, and the book sounds fabulous. I have to buy it.
Thank you.
And I love her cover with the little butterflies on it.
Oh, thank
for
you.
transformation. But this is a very nice lady here, and I'm glad to be here for the Lyme Disease Conference.
We're going to go ahead
Thank you so much. And we'll talk a little bit more later. I didn't know. But
Watch it that you don't back up and go.
Good morning. Thank you very much for all of you joining us here today at this Lyme disease awareness rally and call for action on Senate Bill 100 and House Bill 174. I'd like to start off. My name is Julia Wagner, and I am president of PA Lyme Resource Network and chair of the LymeActPA Coalition. It's a statewide coalition of many patient advocates and patients themselves that are concerned about this serious epidemic in Pennsylvania of Lyme disease. I'm very happy to have a series of speakers here with me today. Senator Stuart Greenleaf has been a very strong advocate on Lyme disease, and he's going to start us off in a moment. And then we're going to have Senator Scavello, who will also speak. And then we have several patients that will be speaking, and I'll introduce them as they come up. You will notice these are predominantly young people that have been dramatically affected by these diseases. And I must acknowledge that as the letters have been pouring into legislators this year, these letters are mostly about kids and youth and young adults. This is a dramatic change since the last advocacy effort when it was predominantly adults. So I would also like to acknowledge the legislators, the senators that have joined us today and taken time out to hear the evidence and to hear the stories and to support the advocacy work of all these patients here. Senator Alloway, Senator Scavello, Senator Langerhold, and I'm sorry if I missed anybody else. Please introduce yourself to me later, and thank you for your support and your advocacy. It is much needed. And with no further ado, I would like to introduce Senator Stuart Greenleaf, who happens to be my personal senator, and we don't know where we would be really without his support. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Julia. Thank you so much for your advocacy. If I ever want to forget about Lyme disease, which she would never allow me to forget about Lyme disease, that's for sure. She is informed, she is tenacious, she is an advocate for advocating for the correction of this disease. We both have family members who have contracted it, so we're familiar with it. And it's the most undiagnosed, misdiagnosed. The test is not accurate. There's no effort, little effort, although the Department of Health is slowly getting on board on this. We've had talks, I've had talks with them about it, and they're more sympathetic about it. I know the medical industry and doctors are split on this, but there is, let me tell you something, there is such a thing as chronic Lyme disease.
Yes!
And if you don't believe it, then walk around with Julia, myself, and others and witness and see them. You can be permanently disabled by this disease. You can die from this disease. And in fact, when the medical profession denies it, it makes it more difficult for them to get treatment. So they have to go to other places, they have to go to other countries, other states. They have to convince doctors to give them the treatment so that they can live a normal, at least attempt to live a normal life. So you think this is an epidemic of a disease that is underdiagnosed and misdiagnosed. And in fact, Pennsylvania used to be Lyme, Connecticut, that's where it got its name, but now Pennsylvania is the epicenter of this problem. I'll just give you some statistics. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention most recent 15-year surveillance study in October 2008 reveals continued emergence and geographic expansion of Lyme disease across the whole United States, not just Pennsylvania or Connecticut. In August of 2013, the CDC released a report that preliminary estimates indicate approximately 300,000 Americans are diagnosed with Lyme disease each year. This is approximately 10 times higher than the number of cases previously reported to the CDC every year. In the last 6 years, Pennsylvania ranked highest in the country in the number of confirmed cases of Lyme disease. In 2016, Pennsylvania reported 12,200 cases of Lyme disease, which translates to 122,000 new cases and about 40% of the nation's cases in Pennsylvania alone. 40%. We should be letting our children, everybody, to be careful. And when you're walking and cutting your grass out in the woods, wherever, you can catch have these ticks, which are spread by our deer and other wildlife, is something that we need to educate people. We did pass a law on that. With John's help and your help, a couple of years ago, we did pass a law that was to educate the public in Pennsylvania. And we have to continue on this. But we also need insurance coverage for people who have Lyme disease, chronic Lyme disease. Now they're paying for it themselves. And it's peanuts. It would not add significant costs to our medical costs and our policies. It's pennies, not even pennies. So I don't understand the resistance to this, but we have to continue to advocate for our constituents and citizens of Pennsylvania so they can have the coverage that they deserve. So this increase with the in Pennsylvania reflects another increase from the 10,817 new cases reported in 2015. And further, in 2015, Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection study was published confirming a high risk of Lyme disease in every county in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. 27 counties had the black-legged tick, verifying that every Pennsylvanian from Philadelphia to Erie must take precautions to prevent the spread of Lyme disease. This would not happen without your advocacy, without your speaking out. We are making progress here. It may take a long time, but we're persistent and we're not going to give up. I know she's not going to give up, and I'm right by her side. So thank you so much for being here today, and we'll get this. We'll be successful. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Senator Greenleaf. We really appreciate your support. We have Senator Scavello, who's going to say a few words now as well. And I also want to recognize Senator Dinniman, who's also been a tremendous supporter for us, who snuck in behind me and I didn't get to see him. So thank you very much for joining us.
I guess it's afternoon. We'll say good afternoon now. But I have to tell you how impressed I am with you being here. It is so important that the legislators hear from you. That's the support that Stuart and I are going to need, and in the House as well. They need to know what's going on. I've been on the Appropriations Committee for many years, and I will tell you, you can go back and check on my website. There's not one Appropriations Committee hearing when we discuss a budget that I don't bring up the Lyme disease situation here in this Commonwealth. Yeah. This past year, actually last year, I commented that New York was doing something different because their numbers were starting to go down. This year, I go and bring it up again, but this time, our numbers are, if you add New Jersey and New York together, we had more cases here in Pennsylvania. That was never the case. And this winter, folks, I'm going to tell you, all that snow is not good. It keeps the ticks warm. We need cold, so be careful out there. Because I talk about it all the time, my secretary and her daughter had ticks. And they caught it in time because right away they hear it from me all the time. You gotta be aware. There's an item in my university in East Stroudsburg. They came out with LymeAid that you can do and it tests 99.99%. So, and it's something that, you know, I push in the stores, and we need to continue to do that. I can tell you this. I don't know if you remember Representative Hess, God bless him. Well, Representative Hess and I in the House of Representatives, we had a hearing on coverage for you folks. Coverage, which is so important. Mm-hmm. And the senator was right. It's not that expensive. But my gosh, if you don't, it's debilitating. It's not going to make you any better. And 30 days is not enough. If you don't catch it in time, I don't have to tell you, 30 days is not enough. I can tell you, yeah, right? Yeah. Young children. Do you know that that if they were bit by a tick, that they almost react like if they had autism? Think about this. Go up on YouTube, you can see the cases. They thought the child was autistic and the child had Lyme disease. it's misdiagnosed all the time. So I thank you for your advocacy. I tell you, I will not stop until we get this done. God bless you.
Thank you very, very much, Senator Spello. And Senator Dinniman, please join us.
Well, good afternoon. I come from Chester County, where we've had some of the highest incidence of Lyme disease in the nation. And it's time that we have some action on this. We are only on the cusp, by the way, of understanding tick-borne diseases. While we've looked at one tick and the 4 diseases, mainly Lyme, that has come out of this one type of tick, understand there are 4 varieties of ticks. And so it could well be that tick-based diseases are the most serious health problem facing this nation, and it's time to take our heads out of the sand and to focus in on the research that's needed and the solutions that are needed. I addressed about 150 people in Chester County about a year ago, and I asked them how many people had chronic Lyme, and almost everyone in that audience did. And I said, how many of you use long-term antibiotics? About 100 raised their hands. And the stories that were told. I was in bed, I couldn't move. But the long-term antibiotics, I took this and I got out of bed and now I'm here today. Yes. That I was suffering from severe depression. That I couldn't walk. That I couldn't even see right. That we are ignoring these diseases, these conditions which come out of Lyme disease. And we have to stop that. We have to take our responsibility to protect the public health. Now, the insurance companies will never willingly want to pay for long-term chronic Lyme. And unfortunately, the medical profession has given them an excuse not to do so. Well, thanks to the leadership of Senator Greenleaf, who really is a hero on this issue, and there's no question about it. Thanks to Senator Greenleaf, we have a bill now. And a bill that simply says that whatever the doctor orders, you, the insurance company, pay. And a bill that makes it clear that no doctor will ever be punished for doing what that doctor believes to be medically correct. And we are fortunate to have more and more physicians who are now specializing in this area. In our county, we just had a physician come in who deals with psychiatric Lyme, who deals with neurological Lyme, who just finished a postdoctoral program at Columbia University. Because what I'm trying to say is this. If you start to put together many conditions that are beginning to increase, the increase in depression, the increase in psychiatric disorders, the increase even, I would say, in issues as autism and other types of disease, of conditions that we don't understand. We will understand them because many of them have a basis in Lyme disease. And finally, and because, the physicians will tell us, our own health department says, oh, it's something else. You don't understand. You're tired because you're just tired. There's no reason. Oh, or you don't feel well, or you can't move because of that. We've all been through that. No, I know people in my county who've gone to 20 physicians before they would get one that would treat them. And that person was threatened by other physicians in the sense that they said that person wasn't medically doing the right thing. But that person is alive today, that person is active today because that 20th physician saved that person's life. So the bottom line is, to put this all in perspective, is this. We have a fight before us. We have a bill that Senator Greenleaf has created and I was proud to co-sponsor. We have a health department that's completed a study on costs, but has not come back to meet with the people of this Commonwealth to share their study and to tell us how we can proceed. So start to put the pressure on. put the pressure on the insurance companies, on the physician community, on our own Department of Health, and most importantly, go and see your senator and tell them, and then ultimately your representative once we get this through the Senate, and tell them that I am going to determine who I vote for in the next election based on someone who cares about me, who cares about the hundreds of thousands of people who have Lyme disease, who recognizes that Pennsylvania is the center of this epidemic. And if you want my vote, you want my support, then you support Senator Greenleaf's bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Danneman. You can tell that he has a place in his heart for this disease, and Chester County has, in the nation, been #1 in incidents over and over and over again. So with that, we're going to switch to having some patients speak, and I'd like to invite Megan Harrison to please come up to the podium. She is going to share her story and probably some surprising news about what Lyme disease can do to youth and children. So Megan, please go ahead.
Hi everyone. I am so glad I can be here today and talk to you. I actually just raced back from Tulsa, Oklahoma, where I go to college, because this issue is so important to me. Thinking back to how sick I was, it is a miracle that I am in college, and I want to tell you why. Before Lyme disease incapacitated me, I was an avid high school rower and swimmer. My plan was to do Division I rowing in college. Math and science were my favorite subjects, and I was on the robotics team. In my free time, I could usually be found on adventures with great friends or with my head in a book. That all changed, though, when my health began to deteriorate. At my sickest, I couldn't walk a mile. Trips to the grocery store with my mom would exhaust me. Excruciating migraines became a normal part of my life. My once quick wit and love for intellectual pursuits was gone because of a fog constantly surrounding my brain. I was out of school for 3 years because my body was barely functioning. Even seeing friends became impossible because a simple hour conversation would exhaust me so much that I was bedridden for 3 more days. I went from a full life to one where I barely recognized myself. Everything that defined me was ripped out of my life. How did I reach this point? In 2003, at the age of 9, my knees were so swollen with fluid that they had to be drained more than once. The specialists I saw in Philadelphia ran tests for Lyme disease and juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. Both came back negative. However, I was misdiagnosed with juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. Why was it okay to clinically diagnose me with that, but not even consider clinically diagnosing me with Lyme disease? This is especially odd since the CDC states that the Lyme test should not be relied on for diagnosis when Lyme symptoms are present. Recently, the same hospital I was treated at back then published a study where the majority of children presenting with swollen knees ended up having Lyme disease. In 2005, when I was 12, I actually had a bullseye rash and was treated with a short course of antibiotics, the standard treatment. After a few months, my symptoms advanced. I began having severe migraines, so bad that I had to be in a closed, dark room with no sound. My head felt like it would explode during each episode, and rolls of nausea waved over me. This became the new normal for me and was a large part of middle school and the beginning of high school. In November 2008, when I was 15, my body began to stop functioning normally. During swim team season that year, I began to have constant nausea. Fatigue made it difficult to even pull my body through the water during practice. In hopes of a fast recovery, I quit the varsity team. Then, in January, as the disease continued to progress, I completely lost my short-term memory overnight. My parents liken this time in my life to the movie 50 First Dates, where the protagonist cannot remember one day to the next. School tests were impossible since everything I learned disappeared after 2 hours. When I came home from school, I couldn't remember anything about the day. Thankfully, I took copious notes, which is how I was able to do my homework. I still don't remember anything from that period of time, not even going to prom. There are pictures, but I don't have any memories to accompany them. As the disease continued producing new symptoms, I became a guinea pig to neurologists, gastroenterologists, and cardiologists. They ran countless tests trying to figure out what was wrong with me. 2 of my new symptoms were insomnia and stabbing abdominal pain that would double me over from its severity. As the doctor's visits continued, my mom began doing her own research. The only illness that seemed to explain all of my symptoms was Lyme disease. However, when she asked my doctors to test for it, they refused because I didn't have the classic arthritic symptoms. That May, I was finally tested and diagnosed with Lyme disease. My family doctor called and said there was no doubt that I had the disease. My reaction was pure excitement. After being a lab rat for so long, I finally knew what I had. In July of 2009, I was given a short term of IV antibiotics by an infectious disease doctor, and my memory returned. However, the doctor pulled me off of the antibiotics even though my health was improving. He told us I'd had the standard treatment. Despite my many other symptoms, the infectious disease guidelines said I was cured. Without the continuation of treatment, I began fainting, seeing black spots in my vision, and word finding became difficult. By September, I had encephalitis, 2 days of blindness, and a migraine that lasted for an entire month. My insomnia became worse. I could only sleep 10 to 12 hours a week. During this time, I was a complete zombie. Half a year later, I was finally able to see a doctor who understood how to treat this disease. After being put on longer-term antibiotics, I began to heal. While on the IV antibiotics, my family received a letter from our insurance company stating that coverage would cease for my treatment. Treating Lyme disease is incredibly expensive for the patient. My family spent a substantial amount of money for treatments that were not covered by insurance. I feel so lucky that my parents were able to afford to get me healthy. When all their money went to healing me, it meant we could never afford family vacations. We never went out to eat. Instead of going to movies, we would get free movies out of our local library. My mom became an expert thrift shop shopper. We didn't even have smartphones. They sacrificed aspects of life that many people take for granted. However, I know of families that had to sell their homes to pay for their children's treatment, or other families that simply could not afford treatment and had to watch their children suffer. There was a point in my life where my family didn't know if I would live through that year because I was so sick. That is why it's a miracle that I am here speaking to you today. I went many years undiagnosed. By the time it was caught, I was so ill, I couldn't function on my own. My mom had to quit her job just to take care of me. Short-term treatment did very little to restore my health. However, with longer-term treatment, I am in college and able to speak to you. I finished finals last Thursday, and I am officially talking to you now as a senior in college. A few years ago, we had no idea if I would ever be able to attend college, let alone even graduate from high school. Now I am a senior at the University of Tulsa. I am involved in Student Association, Panhellenic Council, my sorority, and many other campus groups. Last summer, I interned with the Air Force Research Laboratory in Florida and did a 9-week leadership program, both at the same time. This summer, I'll be doing research with a professor at Drexel University College of Medicine. My life now is full of adventure, laughter, and hard work. But I wouldn't be the person I am today if I had not had access to better diagnostics and longer-term treatment. That shell of a person I used to be is gone. Now I lead a life that was only a dream when I was so sick. To all those suffering through Lyme and other tick-borne diseases right now, I want you to know there is hope. To all the senators considering this bill, I would not be functional without the treatments I have undergone. I would not be studying biochemistry at the University of Tulsa. I would not be the Chief Justice of my school student association. I would not be on Panhellenic Council serving as the Vice President of Judicial Affairs, and I would not be a Chi Omega. If I had not received treatment, I would be unable to contribute to society at all. However, I am lucky that my parents could afford to get me treatment I needed. Many families can't. I had friends whose parents had to choose which of their children was going to be treated because their insurance companies wouldn't cover their treatments. As more is being learned about these emerging tick-borne diseases, why aren't insurance companies updating their policies? The only general Lyme disease treatment guidelines on the national database for physicians recommends longer-term treatment. So why aren't insurance companies not covering this? Vote yes on Senate Bill 100 and House Bill 174. Prevent my story and pain from happening again. You have the power to shape the future for all of Pennsylvania's youth. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much, Megan. When I first met Megan, you bring back so many very sad and painful memories, and I hope that she captured the experience of this disease in youth and children. This story, when I first discovered what was happening in our family, I must have captured 200 case studies with the same story. Her story is representative of thousands of children in this state. And with that, I'd now like to introduce Michelle and Cameron Cassatore. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. As Julia said, my name is Michelle Cassatore, and I'm an occupational therapist by background with 27 years of clinical experience. And I'm also an adjunct faculty member in the occupational therapy department at Misericordia University. My husband, Don, who's here with us today, is the business manager and co-founder of Pro Rehabilitation Services up in Plains, Pennsylvania, which is where we're from. And we have 3 children. Our oldest daughter, Allison, is 19, and she's a freshman chemistry major at Ursinus College, probably taking a final right now, so she might be just a little more nervous than I am. We have our 15-year-old daughter, Cameron, who's here with us today, and Cameron is a freshman at Holy Redeemer High School. And I'm going to let Cameron tell you her story in her own words. And we also have a 12-year-old son, Dylan, and he is in 6th grade at Wyoming Area Catholic. And I'm here today really to talk a little bit about a mom's perspective, having a child who has been suffering and struggling with chronic Lyme disease for the past 3 years. It was a year before Cameron was diagnosed with Lyme disease, and I had to request that she be tested because I finally started thinking that all of these symptoms of headaches and fatigue and muscle soreness and swollen joints, and perhaps all these dots were connected to one common diagnosis. We were fortunate enough that her test did come back positive, but unfortunately it was a year after she had been infected, and we were prescribed with 30 days of doxycycline, which is the typical course. And it was really just that simple, 30 days. And Cameron began to feel a little better after those 30 days. We certainly saw some improvements. But within about 4 weeks, her symptoms came back, both physically, and then they had begun to advance cognitively, psychologically, just some emotional issues going on. And when I reached back out to the physician who had originally diagnosed and prescribed the doxycycline, I was told that that can happen and that Advil was the course of treatment. Yeah, so that didn't help us a whole heck of a lot. But needless to say, we had been given back the same positive Western blot test, but with this time it had been written in ink that said treated. So, with that, we were to believe that this disease had been taken care of. It had been treated completely with the 30 days of doxycycline. Unfortunately, that is not what it appeared to us with the health of our daughter. So that prompted me to begin looking into some of my own research and information that was available on Lyme disease, and I learned a lot about untreated and undertreated Lyme disease. It most certainly becomes chronic. It affects the brain and the nervous system. It can have significant cognitive and psychological impacts. It can diminish a child's cognitive functioning, their socialization, which can most certainly lead to depression. Early treatment is critical to prevent long-term effects. But when this condition becomes chronic, that's when insurance falls off. The 30 days of doxycycline is simply not enough when this disease has progressed to a chronic state. And you don't have insurance coverage for that. So we eventually began treatment with a practitioner who specializes in tick-borne illnesses. and we began additional testing and found out that Cameron also contracted Babesia and Bartonella, which are two co-infections very common from tick-borne illnesses, and they need to be treated as well, and they had not been treated before. Now, I'll tell you, these diagnostic tests that we had run were not covered by our insurance company. So we paid out of pocket for that, but that information, knowing what she was fully infected with, allowed us to develop a far more effective treatment plan for her. How was my daughter going to get better when we weren't even fully treating what was wrong with her in the first place? So that information was critical. This disease, because it was left untreated, then undertreated, has cost, Cameron and our family very dearly. Socially, family celebrations, missed school time, constantly working to catch back up and keep up with the class and maintain her social connections at school. Financially, our family has spent over $30,000 to date out of pocket to try to fight this chronic Lyme disease, which is now part of our daily life, part of Cameron's daily life. There have been many system failures and obstacles when we're fighting this disease. First, there was little to no awareness when we know that early diagnosis is critical. When left untreated and undertreated, the impacts are significant on the quality of life, particularly for children, which are our most at-risk group in this state. Second, there's the lack of coverage for accurate diagnostic tests, which are needed to develop accurate, effective treatment plans. It's really that simple. There's also a lack of coverage for the thorough treatment needed to fight chronic Lyme disease, which so often occurs. The financial barriers can be overwhelming for families, and they can often lead to a situation where treatment is just completely unaffordable. You cannot get the treatment that you need. We're here today because we know that we all need to come together to speak up for change. We have to advocate to protect the health and well-being of our youth. No child should have to suffer, and no parent should have to see their child suffer and be in a situation where you have to make the kinds of financial choices to get your child healthy. We still have a long journey ahead of us, and we're very proud of Cameron in her fight, and she's accomplished a great deal. But today our legislators have the opportunity to make a difference, to rewrite the story of a child like Cameron and so many other children in our state. We're asking for support for Senate Bill 100 and House Bill 174 so that the necessary diagnostic tests and treatments can be covered by insurance, so we can keep our children healthy and productive and achieving all of their dreams. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Cameron Cassatori, and I'm a 15-year-old freshman honors student at Holy Redeemer High School. I have chronic Lyme disease. I was bit by a tick when I was 12 years old. I remember the bullseye rash on my ankle, but never told my parents because I didn't think it meant anything. I got sick after that with fatigue, headaches, muscle aches, and even cellulitis in my leg. I did not get diagnosed or treated for more than a year after my tick bite, and as a result, I have chronic health issues. It has not been easy fighting this disease for the past 3 years, especially because not many people understand what I am going through. I missed a lot of school this year, family celebrations, and my entire freshman basketball season. Some days are easier than others to push through school and tennis and social situations, but then I am usually exhausted. I am grateful for the good care I get now and the support of my family. I know that it has not been easy on my family. My parents have missed work to take me to multiple medical appointments, often out of town. I also know it is expensive because some of my tests and treatment have not been paid for by insurance. I have a lot of goals for myself, and I don't intend to give up. I want to be healthy enough to go to school every day, all day, and play tennis and basketball, and spend time with my friends. I am willing to fight for the life I want, despite my Lyme disease, but we need available insurance, covered health care, so I can accomplish all of this. I am asking the legislators in this state to help me succeed in my future by passing legislation for my needed treatment to be covered by insurance. I won't give up, but I can't do it alone. My family and friends are with me, and now I am asking our state leaders to support me and everyone who is fighting for a better, healthier life. Please support Senate Bill 100 and House Bill 174. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cameron and Michelle, for a very compelling story. We have one last patient story, and Amber Gordon is going to speak, and she is also a medical professional and has had quite a battle with this disease. Thank you, Amber.
Hi guys, good afternoon. Thank you, Julia. I'm a little taller. Okay. How's everybody doing today? Good? Thank you all for being here. This is really awesome. Like Julia said, my name is Amber Gordon, and I am 29. I'm still a student, but I actually got my first tick bite when I was 15 years old. So I did struggle throughout my childhood and my youth with this. So I'm going to share my story. It is mine, but it is not unique. A lot of my symptomology and the things that I went through are very similar to what you heard from Megan and from Cameron. When I was 15, I didn't find a tick, but I was lucky enough to get a rash, which less than 50% of people are. I went to my family doctor, and again, I was lucky enough to come back positive. And again, not many people even are lucky enough to get the positive test result. As we all know, false negatives are very common. And I was given my 10 days of antibiotics, right? And so I'm like, all right, cool, like 10 days of antibiotics, good, I'm solid, treated it, never have to worry about it ever again. Oh my gosh, was I so wrong. That one bite began unraveling my health, but no one even thought that the health problems that followed had anything to do with that tick bite. I got my 10 days, so I was cured, right? That couldn't be more wrong. Short-term treatment had failed. 10 days is definitely not enough. In the years that followed, I went from specialist to specialist, begging for somebody to give me an answer. I was in my late teens, early 20s, and I just could not keep up. I was exhausted, I was getting every cold that came around, my body was rejecting food, I had brain fog, and that was just the beginning. I was bitten again when I was 21, and went through the same process, bullseye rash, positive treatment, 10 days of antibiotics. In my mid-20s, my health really went downhill. I went from being a very outgoing, social, bright, and involved student to a shadow of that person. I was a prisoner in my own body. Conversation became something that I would dread, and I spent most of my time in bed. I struggled to keep up with daily tasks, but still, no doctor could tell me what was wrong. Eventually, I lost my job, I was kicked out of school, I lost my ability to live on my own, and things were looking very bleak for my future. I let go of my dreams and the hopes for the life that I would live. And when you can't get out of bed to shower, trust me, the messy bun takes on a whole new meaning. Through a twist of fate, my mom was actually the person to see what all of the doctors were missing. As a nurse, she began seeing patients matching my symptomology, and they were getting diagnosed with Lyme disease. I couldn't understand how I could have Lyme disease because I had gotten treated and I was better, right? But those two separate rounds of 10 days, they definitely hadn't done the trick. We learned about a lab out in California that had a high success rate in testing for Lyme and co-infections, especially when they've been present in the body for a long period. My mom helped me convince the doctor to order the test, but we could not find a lab to draw it because they would not get reimbursed from the insurance companies. So my mom drew my blood at the kitchen table and we sent it off. Paying for that test was just the beginning. I was waiting for my results and that wait was agonizing. I can't even tell you, I've never been on WebMD so much in my entire life. I wanted answers, but the more I learned, the less I wanted it to be this disease. It seemed like it was real, and it felt like it was real to me, but why didn't people believe in it? My test, sure enough, came back positive, and my quest to get my life back began. Normally, when you get diagnosed with an illness, you go to a doctor, you get treated, and you get better, right? Well, that's not the case with this illness. First, you have to find a doctor that will actually treat the patient with chronic Lyme disease and co-infections, which is a challenge because there are not enough of these physicians to balance out the incredible numbers of patients who need treatment, and many of these doctors are hard to come by because they face scrutiny from these insurance companies. If you can find one of these doctors, Deciding on a course of treatment is your next hurdle. The final hurdle, and perhaps the most insurmountable, is paying for treatment. These doctors cannot accept insurance because the treatment is not covered. Insurance companies do not cover treatment for Lyme disease, and the treatment is often long and complex, and patients often must be retreated multiple times. After being sick and undiagnosed for 10 years, I began my journey. I had a PIC line, who was my BFF, for 18 months. I did almost every treatment out there, including long-term antibiotics. My intense treatment lasted over 3 years and still continues. None of it was covered. My parents remortgaged their home to give me a chance to get my life back. My family has maxed out credit cards, asked for help for friends and family, also their daughter could get necessary medical treatment. That's not right. It's not okay that my parents gave up their retirement to pay for something that is a basic human right. That was denied to me because I got the wrong illness. I still cannot wrap my head around the fact that I would still be laying in bed in pain, not living, not thriving, if my family did not have the resources to help me. So I am here as one of the lucky ones, speaking for the many who are still suffering because they do not have the financial means to buy their health. That just should not be. This disease exists. Chronic Lyme exists. There are people suffering and even dying. There is no reason that insurance companies should continue to be allowed to deny Americans the necessary treatment to regain their health. I'm able to stand here today and speak after tens of thousands of out-of-pocket medical costs. No one should be sentenced to be a prisoner in their own body just because they were unlucky enough to contract Lyme and do not have the financial means to pay for their health. My treatment will be ongoing. My body is forever changed and irreparable damage has been done due to a severely delayed diagnosis and difficulty getting access to treatment. But my life now, because of being able to have access to the treatment, I'm actually finishing up graduate school. I have a 3.49 GPA. And my quest is to be able to speak and to be able to help the families that are struggling with this disease because it's underwhelmingly unrecognized. My hope that is for me and for all who have this illness to never, ever have to worry about money being the thing that stands between the way of them and getting well. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Amber Gordon, for eloquently stating the case. I don't have much to say because I think they've done a fabulous job of explaining the situation that we have with Lyme disease. That's right. I do have a couple things to say. One, for the legislators, it is understandable that this is a confusing disease. It is complex and the science has evolved rapidly. Old dogma dies hard. We welcome every legislator to educate themselves. We have many resources, and I am a logical, fact-based, science-based person, and we have accumulated the evidence. We invite all legislators to look at that research, to understand the complexity of this disease, and to do the right thing for Pennsylvanians. For insurers, I'm a business person, and I cannot understand for the life of me why insurance companies are not fighting to get this disease diagnosed as early as possible, treated as aggressively as possible, because then those patients are not going to end up in the emergency rooms seeing 50 million different specialists and spending your money hand over fist for all of the results of a delayed and undertreated disease. This is fact. It is in the literature. Massachusetts did a study of the cost for insurers of covering longer-term treatment. Do you want to know what the incremental cost was? 3 cents. I think Eric said 13. 3 cents per person. Can you believe it? 3 cents. Massachusetts has passed a law forcing insurers to cover this. Connecticut, Rhode Island has had a law for almost 10 years, and they gave the insurers an opportunity with the sunset clause to come back and tell the legislators that it was too expensive, it would put them out of business, and not one insurer came back with that evidence. This state is number one. We are doing nothing. We have got to get this disease diagnosed early and treated aggressively. We are not forcing anybody to use long-term antibiotics. We are providing the option to physicians who want to use that option for their patient. They are removing barriers by paying for what the physician has prescribed based on their licensed ability to make those decisions for patients. Insurers are not licensed to make medical decisions. Physicians are. So I really want to invite all of you to educate yourselves, because it is preventable and you can get bitten again, as we have heard. But more importantly, I want you to educate everyone that you know that we must act. I cannot tell you, it is heartbreaking to me to see the large increase in children and youth being affected. It is more every day, and we can do something about this. Our own son, our youngest, Peter, want to raise your hand? Peter's presentation was autistic symptoms, but he was properly diagnosed with Lyme, Bartonella, Babesia, Mycoplasma, and within a month, he was speaking. His speech was restored. He is a fabulous young man today and very healthy. So thank you all, and please get the word out. I've got a couple of announcements, and they are, we have packets. I believe Lee Gordon, if you can raise your hand. She's right behind me. We invite you to go visit your senators and your legislators. Help us distribute packets to all legislators in the Capitol building and other buildings by going to Lee. She will give you a list and give you a bag with the handouts. And please give them the Lyme, because Lyme aid is needed now. Thank you.
All right, hang in there, Facebook. We're going to talk to some Lyme patients here. All right, so you just heard a couple of speeches from politicians, from Lyme patients themselves. We're going to look at some signs. We're going to talk to some patients. Yep, thank you. I want to give a shout out to PA Lyme Resource Network for putting this rally together. Also to Amy and Tina in the comments for sharing this video. This is Josie. You want to say hi? This is Josie from Journey for Josie. Josie! And her mom, Lisa. Lisa, we're live on Facebook.
I'm good.
So if you want to say hi, we'll look at her sign. Lyme, it will change your lifetime. This is Ryan. Let's see what it says. I won't stop fighting for accessible treatment. I won't stop fighting for affordable treatment. I won't stop fighting for a cure. I won't stop fighting for bills SB100, HB174. Can you flip it around? Okay, this is really moving. I am sick. I'm not stupid or crazy. It's not stress, and it's not in my head. I'm not making it up. I can deal with this sickness. I like my independence, but sometimes I may need your help. Don't take that as a weakness or that I am giving up. I am trying the best I can. And that, unfortunately, is a mantra for all Lyme patients. We are strong, but we're tired, and sometimes we just have to do the best that we can. Thanks, Ryan. All right, this is Brayden. Brayden, do you want to show us your poster? I am ticked off because I can't get affordable or accessible treatment. And you see a gross picture of the tick up there. Want to turn around? This other one is, you have the skills, so pass the bills. That's awesome, Brayden. Good job. Alright, we're gonna go take a look until my battery runs out or my storage is filled up. We're gonna go take a look at some of these other posters.
Yeah, there tomorrow. Hopefully we are.
Let's take a look at this one. $60,000 out of pocket. Unfortunately, that's the reality that so many of us deal with. Treatment is expensive because it's denied by the insurance companies.
Nice to meet both of you.
Let's take a look over here at this one. This is Nika. Nika, can you hold up your sign? I am strong. I haven't given up. I am a Lyme warrior. I am focused because I know my goal. Save lives, stop Lyme.
20-somethings and mine's 17.
Let's see what's happening up here. Bear with me while we move a little bit.
We see a lot.
Dad works 3 jobs to pay what good insurance won't. Unfortunately, that's the case. Even with insurance, we're not getting enough for treatment because Lyme disease is actually denied by the insurance companies, if you can believe it. This is such a prevalent disease. So many people are sick, and they just can't get treatment. And there's evidence by patient stories and by studies that show that the Lyme persists and that they can get better with treatment. And it's important to note that it's not just the antibiotics that cost money. Some people need IVs. Some people need, it's expensive for supplements. Not only that, but people lose their livelihoods. They have to take leaves of absences from their jobs, or they lose their jobs because they can't go to work anymore. And too often, we're actually caught in the crossroads where we're too sick to work, but we seem healthy enough, according to everybody else. That's why this is called an invisible illness, because to the outside world, we're well, but too often, we're so sick. And so we fall in the cracks here. And unfortunately, the way this country is right now, so many people forsake the sick. Let's see what other signs we have. If you guys have any questions, feel free to add them in the comments. We're getting attacked by balloons right here. I'm going to take a look at some other signs. Lyme disease sucks. Please help us support SB100, HB174.
I can take it back and deliver to somebody. Oh yeah. We gotta.
I don't mean to interrupt, but we're streaming live on Facebook, and I've noticed your sign throughout the rally. Do you want to say anything about it?
This was last year's stat, and this does not even encompass the transmission from an adult who has it to a child in utero. This
That's true.
Was last year. This doesn't even encompass that.
Lyme disease, what people don't know is that it's often passed from mother to child. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, thank you for being here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
For being here also.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, yeah.
Give me that East Wing crazy line lady. Should mine?
Let's go talk to Nika. Nika, what did you think of the rally?
I am blown away by these girls who are kids when they were diagnosed or not diagnosed, and how well spoken, how they told all of our stories so well. And they give me hope for my kids and my family.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Yeah, that's what Lyme patients really bring us, is they bring us hope. Especially when you see how devastating this disease is. We know how devastating it is, but they give us hope for survival, and not just survival, but to thrive. Yeah. Yeah, you're live. We're live. We're live until our battery runs out. Yeah. Okay, guys, I'm gonna sign off now. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you for your support. I'm gonna share this on the Being LymeBrave Facebook page. So feel free to share it out. When I get back home, I'll post it to YouTube and everything, so it'll be easily accessible. For those of you watching who do have Lyme disease, I hope you stay strong and be brave. For those of you who don't, I want to say thank you for your support. It's really incredible that you're here for us, because we really need that support and that encouragement to get us through this devastating illness. So thanks a lot, and we'll see you soon.